Today, buckle up. That's the warning from a Republican senator to Donald Trump as the president starts to lose patience.
I'm not frustrated. I don't get frustrated.
Plus, the sun returns.
What the man? What are you all talking about?
Hunter Biden goes X-rated and unplugged to attack his critics, something the left is cheering on.
We kept it classy for too long, and at this point, I'm like, come at me and I'm going to punch you in the mouth.
Also, on the eve of fight night at the White House,
maybe, we'll just host weekly fights between people in politics.
The Trump family cashes in on the president's UFC spectacle. And, you mad, bro? MAGA tries to make masculinity an issue in these midterms.
If a stiff breeze came by, it would blow him over like a feather.
Here in studio, Bakari Sellers, Noah Rothman, Reshma Sujani, and Xochitl Hinojosa. It's the weekend. Join the conversation at a table for 5. Hi, everyone. I'm Abby Phillip. As the pressure is mounting on Donald Trump, he claims it doesn't faze him.
I'm not frustrated. I don't get frustrated.
But the problem is that this week showed that he's clearly not telling the truth, or at least not quite telling the truth. Sources said that he's furious that new strikes against Iran weren't seen as powerful enough. He also made a pretty far-fetched claim when he was complaining about the media coverage of the war.
Iran is very good at publicity, but they're not good at fighting. But I took a look, and I must tell you, they can't believe the press they're getting. They can't even believe it. Yeah. And they told me, they said, it's amazing how well we're doing in the papers.
On top of the war, he gave into pressure and named a new pick to lead the nation's intelligence agencies. That's after backlash over his unexpectedly inexperienced selection. He called California's elections rigged when Spencer Pratt lost a mayoral race, but apparently believed them when his gubernatorial candidate advanced. He blamed his staff for making him endorse a candidate who lost his primary this week. And many times when Trump gets frustrated, he denies reality, like claiming that he wasn't booed at Madison Square Garden this week, or this comment about inflation hitting a 3-year high.
Are you concerned, Mr. President, about the latest inflation number which came out this morning? Could that be a
No, I love it.
For
The numbers look great. You know what I really love? I love the inflation. Oh, when the war's over?
Yes.
It's coming down.
I know you can't.
It's going to come down like a rock.
But despite playing it cool, one of the Republicans who lost his primary after a Trump snub says that he and others have more freedom now, and Trump's in for a bumpy ride for the next few months and perhaps the next 2 years. I think a lot of things are happening this week, but they all kind of converge on one thing, which is that a lot of the force of will that Trump puts behind everything that he does in the presidency has not been enough to do two things. One, resolve this war in Iran fully, and two, release some of this economic anxiety that voters have had and their unhappiness with how he's handled the economy. And this is all happening, and the midterms are just a few months away now.
Well, I think Trump and the Republican Party are in for a rude awakening. Most times you have an incumbent president, and during the midterm, you usually see some fall off. I mean, that's the way that history goes. But I think now you're starting to see Trump's imprint on the party be detrimental to their chances for success in November, because everybody recognizes when Trump endorses someone in the Republican primary, those individuals win. The problem is over the next 6 months, you kind of have to shake that off, because voters right now, they're not in favor of higher inflation. They're not in favor of a war in Iran. They're not in favor of higher gas prices. They elected Donald Trump with all of his vulgarity, with all of his tweets, with all of his behavior, with all of the things that drive me up a wall. They said they were going to vote for him again because he's going to lower the cost of living. What has Donald Trump not done? Lower the cost of living. They elected him because they said we're going to put America first. What are they not seeing? America first. And so there are very tangible things, ideals, politics, policies from a 50,000 foot view that we don't even have to get in the weeds of policy to see where Donald Trump has not even met the level of expectation of the voting base that put him back in the office.
No.
Man, that was good.
Yeah.
All right.
You left Noah like a little speechless. Go ahead, Noah.
No, I think the president, if he's frustrated with the degree to which people reacted to his strikes and said, well, this isn't big enough, he only has himself to blame. We were here when that happened. He called them off mid-sortie. Under the expectation, apparently, that the Iranians were coming closer to a deal with him. And the deal is subject to interpretation. What we're getting from the White House and what we're getting from Tansim, for example, or here, the Iranian news agencies, diametrically opposed. There's no way to reconcile those two things. So we don't even know what's coming. I would suspect that the president believes, and correctly believes, that the American people will be unforgiving if he emerges from this war with anything less than a realistic claim to success, to efficacy.
Can I ask you to respond to this and I just want you to respond. This is Don Bacon. He said this on Thursday, and this is how he sees where we are in the war.
Iran needs to come to us wanting a deal. Right now, we're going to them, and they are abusing the president in these negotiations, if you ask me.
You think they're winning?
Because they think he wants it more than they do. We got to make the Iranians want a deal. And right now, they think they can. They think they have the advantage over President Trump.
I just wonder, based on what you were just saying, I mean, do you think that's an accurate interpretation of where we are?
I don't think it's an inaccurate interpretation. I'm too removed from the process to know and I don't suspect Congressman Bacon is who I really respect. I don't suspect he's close enough to the process either to know precisely what the Iranians are thinking. Look, the blockade is having a significant effect on behavior of the Iranians. We don't even have to be in the room to know that Iranian behavior is shifting as a result of the economic complications that they're facing, the degree to which the IRGC can't pay its subordinates, etc. That's pressure that should continue. I don't see how the president gets what he wants in the absence of that pressure, combined with kinetic force designed to open up the strait. Look, we've done it before. We did it in the 1980s. I'm not sure why this president is reluctant to go back to high-tempo combat operations. Perhaps it's because our exquisite defensive interceptors are too short to guarantee the safety of the Gulf. Perhaps the Gulf allies are getting squeamish. Perhaps political concerns on the domestic front are altering his calculation. Irrespective, the president is coming out of this looking weaker.
It's not helpful that he keeps telling Americans that the war is over and then they keep bombing.
Well,
I mean, that's not helpful.
It's not only that, but all of this is self-inflicted. I mean, if you look back at what happened a year ago, whenever he put forward tariffs and he told the American people that they would just have to deal with a little bit of pain for long-term gain. That didn't end up happening. Then fast forward to this war, again, self-inflicted. So gas prices, all of these things. The economy was actually heading in a pretty good direction. President Trump inherited an economy, and at the start of his presidency, it was going in the right direction. All of the things that he has done, he's gotten in the way of the American people prospering, and the American people are starting to see that, and now they don't really believe him anymore every time that he says, listen, just bear with me for a little bit. And so I think that if you're looking at this week in totality, everything is because Donald Trump caused it as we're heading into the midterm elections.
Yeah, and I also think he's just like unabashedly being like, I don't care.
That's right.
I mean, almost 50% of Americans, they can't afford the essentials, like diapers, food, shoes for their kids. And he has said over and over again, basically, like, I'm going to put billions into bombs and pennies for moms. And he's going to pay the price of that. The math is not mathing for American families. You can't hide behind that. It's just facts.
That chart, look at this chart, the inflation chart, producer price index and the consumer price index, both up sharply for the month of May. I mean, that's directly a result of the war. Inflation is now officially eating up wage increases.
Yeah.
And so it's just not a good fact pattern when you run on bringing prices down and then prices spike.
Yeah, and that's not the only consideration. Americans are not in favor of Iran getting a nuclear weapon. They don't like the Iranian regime. They don't want to see it continue to exist. I kind of wish that he'd approached the American people and said, listen, you're going to have to bear a little bit of a burden in your pockets for a while so we can extirpate this.
But they also just don't like this war. I mean, they agree with you on those two things, but they don't like the fact of this war, and they don't like how it's been.
The legislative way to do that would have been for Donald Trump to actually go to the United States Congress and make his case there and build a coalition to actually authorize war powers to go and do this. The problem with what you're saying is that although we all around this table agree that Iran does not need to have a nuclear weapon, and I would venture to say the overwhelming majority of Americans actually would agree with that, the way that we went about it from the very beginning poses a problem. So now this. happened. You have Marco Rubio, who articulated 2 weeks ago this litany of successes that they've had. One of the things that Marco Rubio did not articulate is actually destroying their nuclear program or making them further away from a nuclear weapon than they were when they destroyed the JCPOA. So what I'm simply saying is, if Donald Trump, he's put himself in this box, if Donald Trump ends this war and the nuclear program in Iran is not destroyed, not just disrupted, but destroyed, this is not a success. And that is a hell of a bar that he set for himself.
And you're going to start to see Republicans, we're already seeing this, Tom Tillis, Cornyn, Cassidy, McConnell to some extent, basically saying it's time to cut bait.
Right.
Because we have a midterm coming up, and this guy in the White House is doing what's good for him, but not what's good for the rest of the
And also, I think if you
Republican
ask the American people, do you want to get rid of nuclear weapons in Iran, or do you want child care? I promise you they're going to pick child care.
But you can't deliver child care. Hang on one second.
Excuse me, you can deliver
you
child
can.
care. You absolutely can. You've
No,
had
the federal
Vermont
government
do it.
can promise you child care. It can take your money out of your pocket. It's not going to give you child care. Private providers give you child care.
That's not
true. It can
true.
promise to pay.
That's actually not true.
That is actually how it
That
works.
is-
The federal
no.
government disperses money that extracts from your pocket. We can overread the poll numbers, which say that the Iranian war is unpopular. But if you ask in those very same polls, you ask what the American people want. These are 80-20 propositions. The Iranian government should not have a nuclear weapon.
But
The Iranian regime should collapse.
I think you are overreading those polls, because it is definitely possible for Americans to say we don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, and to also say we don't think that the best way to make that happen is war.
Well, that's wrong.
Those are not contradictory.
Let me tell you why it's wrong.
Maybe you think that they're wrong.
Well,
but that's
I am,
what
and I'm
the
going to tell you why it's wrong.
American
Because
people
after 2015,
they don't
we
agree
codified
with
an
you.
agreement in which the Iranian government was allowed to keep its high uranium enriching centrifuges, its uranium bomb making equipment.
No,
and it would,
they
and
are
it was
not.
That is not true.
No, it is not.
No, you asked me when the federal
The centrifuges were mothballed. Yes, it is.
That the
How did they start up this? Yes, it is. How did they start up the highly enriched? How did they?
Their bomb-making capabilities? That is not true.
Abby, that's inaccurate.
No.
The JCPOA mothballed centrifuges. It did not dismantle them.
but
That's
you
why
just-
they started
okay.
enriching uranium immediately after the JCPOA collapsed. And if you
Listen.
think that there wasn't going to be a hostage crisis
All
over
right.
the nuclear weapons
we
program.
don't have time to get into all the details of the JCPOA.
The details matter here,
But,
because you're saying they're
it
wrong
does-
when that's inaccurate.
It does matter, because I do think that your assertion that the JCPOA basically just left unsaid whether or not they could have a nuclear weapon is not
It didn't
true.
leave unsaid. It
on
said
top of
actually that you could engage in nuclear research when it's sunset, which would have been sanctioning a bomb
And on top of that, the Trump administration effectively made that sunset immediate when they pulled out of the deal and did not replace it with anything. So what it did is it unshackled Iran from any sort of prohibitions or oversight over what they were doing, and then they immediately started enriching to a level that is close to
can we go back
bomb
to
grade.
just a simple question?
So I'm not saying that the JCPOA was good or perfect. I'm just saying that the absence of any sort of constraints is the main thing that allowed Iran to
Can we just get back to like a very simple question that I would ask?
Okay, last thing.
That I would ask a voter, and I would ask you. I would simply say, the only way that you can destroy Iran's nuclear program is to put boots on the ground, right? Absent Iran doing it themselves, which takes a whole hell of a lot of belief in Iranians, in their government, and nobody around this table actually believes that they're honest brokers. Do you think the American public is willing to risk the lives of our men and women with boots on the ground when we have surging cost of electricity, gas, fertilizer, etc.? And that's why when you brought up the polls, I was like, it sounds okay.
But I think it just displays a remarkable lack of faith in the American people that they wouldn't support a project to liberate Iran and extirpate this 50-year threat and ensure that the hostage.
It's not guesswork, no.
The hostage crisis that we are experiencing now in the Strait of Hormuz.
That's not America first.
And they have said,
we were America first.
Guys, it's not.
No,
we don't have
we're
to guess
clearly
on
America
this.
last.
We don't have to guess on this.
I'm not the one underestimating the
American
people's
public has
desire
been
to
asked
liberate
about
the
this, and they
American
have
people.
said a resounding
as though it's a zero-sum game.
It's not a guess whether or not they support it. They don't.
You should go to Iowa. The voters in Iowa will tell you that
Next
they do
for
not
us,
agree with it.
Hunter Biden takes the gloves off.